Well, I was born in Salinas, California, and I think I probably had some mold reactivity from my earliest age, because I can remember as a very, very small child going into certain buildings and kind of being knocked out. The house where I was living, I think, had some issues. I think it was affecting all of us, but I can't be certain of that. But I know that when my family moved up to Strawberry in 1964 into an old hotel, I was definitely reactive at that point.
How old were you then?
What, about 8? So these various exposures that I had through the years primed me for.
How did you know that the hotel you moved into was moldy, or that you had a reaction? What did that look like for you?
Well, it was a series of adventures in feeling sick inside and feeling better outside. Like during the winter, I stayed in the hotel itself. Had to take up a room which could otherwise be rented out, my brother and I, and completely fell apart. Really had a lot of issues during the winter. And every summer, I was moved out to the buggy barn, to an uninsulated shed next door. And all summer long, I felt like a normal kid, had unlimited energy, everything was terrific. And it got to the point where it's like, cold or not, I'd rather sleep out here than move back into that hotel.
So symptom by symptoms alone.
Yeah, and then we installed a walk-in refrigerator so we could expand the restaurant, and cut through the back wall to put a little outside walk-in refrigerator. And when they cut through that wall, a bunch of old moldy newspapers spilled out. And that's when we found out that the hotel had been insulated with newspapers. And with all the water leaks, they were completely black. Since the hotel was so old, we thought at first these newspapers might be valuable, and we tried to read them, but we couldn't. They were completely covered with mold.
Wow, so they were just completely black.
Yeah, I mean, you could still make out print here and there. So after encountering these moldy newspapers, I immediately went upstairs and crashed, and just blinding headaches, nosebleeds, completely knocked out for I don't know how long. But the severity of my reaction made it clear that that was the source of the problems I was having in this hotel. I mean, there were no other chemicals, no pesticides, no formaldehyde, anything else it could be, but this black mold.
Which every single wall had.
Yeah, everywhere there was a water leak.
Is that hotel still around?
No. Burned down many years ago.
Okay. It's probably a good thing.
Yeah, so the other thing that convinced me was that on a beautiful warm summer day, I was reading the Mark Twain novels, and I think I made it through the entire collection. It was just fantastic antique set of books, and I couldn't put them down. And I think I was reading Roughing It in the hotel lobby when I realized that I was just freezing in there, though it was nice and warm. Headache, just felt incredibly bad, and started wondering why it always felt so good to get outside. So I started experimenting with that. If I went outside, rode my bike around, got in the sunshine, I felt great. Returned to the hotel, fall apart and get nosebleeds again.
So you were still about 8 at this time, so you were experimenting at 8.
Yeah.
Trying to understand what was happening.
Yep. And of course, nobody really believed me at that point.
So you went to your parents and you're like, I feel like I have an issue with mold.
Oh yeah, and they were very sympathetic. And my mom was having issues herself. But I just don't think there was any real mold awareness at that time. I remember there was a local family. There was a housing project not too far away, and there was one family that was always tired. They always seemed really pale and sickly. And I remember going to their house and getting the same vague feeling, not nearly as strong, but I thought, well, this is an explanation for why they have no energy.
Wow.
But the idea of mold reactivity that we're seeing these days, where people are just absolutely crawling out of their houses saying something's killing me, as far as we know, that description didn't even exist. Nobody talked about mold that way.
So, how long did you live in that hotel? How many years?
1964 till 1969.
Okay, so 5 years. Did you stay sick? Did you get worse?
Yeah, I kept cycling through periods where every winter I was certain by Christmas that I was going to die. I managed to keep going to school barely, though I had no memory and no energy, no concentration. I couldn't do sports, couldn't keep up with the other kids, until summer rolled around, in which I could act completely normal all summer long and then lose it again. So in 1969 we moved out of the hotel into a normal house, and I started acting more normal again. So
Regular energy back?
Yeah, that was more confirmation for me.
So then when was the next time? So, okay, so like, what happened next? Did you just continue on living normally until when?
With some reactions to various places, I maintained a fair semblance of normalcy up until going to Truckee High School in 1972. And that place was absolutely knocking me out. The entrance to that school was so bad that I learned to avoid, if at all possible, going through the front entrance, even for a second. And I would walk around to the east entrance and just do everything I could to stay away from the front part of the school.
So even at that time you were practicing mold avoidance.
Yeah. I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people in that school doing that. So when the mystery illness hit, it was really no secret that the school was making people sick. It's just that the chronic fatigue syndrome experts, they only wanted to talk to those who recovered, and they created an impression that this was the only phenomenon to look at, and nobody else knew anything. Which is pretty silly.
Yeah. That is ridiculous. So many people were sick. You knew people who were just sick there. And it was known that it was the high school.
Yeah. And specifically that it was the front entrance that was bad. Sure.